Martial arts traditions are passed down through the generations. Phil Dunlap created advanced fighting systems as a way to preserve the Burmese martial arts that were passed down to him by his grandfather.
My name is Phil Dunlap. I became involved in the martial arts because I was born into it. My grandfather was into the martial arts and he started training me when I was a young child. When my grandfather passed away, I started Advanced Fighting Systems to try and preserve and pass on the Kachin styles of martial arts. And Kachin is a state in northern Burma. And the idea is Advanced Fighting Systems is nothing more than my personal view of how the Kachin system would fit into the modern world. My great-grandfather was an Irish doctor, and he got in trouble with the English, and he emigrated to China. My grandfather grew up in China and became an acupuncturist. He also got in some trouble with the English government, so he moved to Burma. And he ended up in the Kachin state simply because the Kachin hated the English government. And what would happen is a friend of my enemy is my friend. My grandfather ended up being lineage holder in this particular form of Kachin martial arts simply by default. He was living in the Kachin state during World War II. He was trained by the person who was a lineage holder who had no heirs and basically passed it on to him. The Kachin have been at war with just about everybody around them since, time started. They were very much a people at war, and at war by ambush. In other words, they lived in a very inhospitable state. Like I tell people, when you think of the Kachin people, think of a people who live on a mountaintop that's a jungle. And that's basically the environment that they live in. So they live up at the top of the mountains because it's very hard to get to them. And they're almost always at a state of feud with somebody. Modern SEAL teams are actually patterned after the Jinpo way of battle. Cross ambushes constantly. In other words, never leave the opponent with a clear line of attack. And the self-defense system seems to mirror that idea. Always take angles, always use structure to stop your opponent from being able to land effective shots. In Burmese language, Thine is basically martial art, and what we do is we do what's called Kien, and it's a form of martial art. It's considered total combat. Now, there's both a sport and a real component. Now, sport is just viewed as a way of preparing for actual combat. The attributes you need, such as timing, distancing. I notice many times in the martial arts, people don't seem to have the little fiber that makes somebody a fighter. In other words, they're not working contact, they're not working distancing, they're not working timing. A lot of people have told me we're almost backwards in the way we train. Like a lot of martial arts will train you to passively restrain your opponent. We have a tendency to believe that to be kind to your opponent is to be cruel to yourself. So we want to do maximum damage right away and then leave. When you look at Burmese boxing, when you look at Naban, which is a form of Burmese grappling that's very popular in the Rakhine state and the Kachin state, they're all to the finish. In other words, the idea is there's no idea of a point system, a draw, a scoring system. It's all until one guy gives up. And rules are extremely minimal. In Burmese boxing, any standing strike is legal, any throw is legal, groin kicks are legal, headbutts are allowed, there's no gloves. 3 knockouts wins the fight. If you get knocked out once, they wake you up, they ask you if you want to continue. You have 1 minute to decide whether or not you want to continue. And if you want to continue, you can continue. You get knocked out again, they'll ask you again. 3rd time, you're out. It's kind of like in baseball, 3 strikes, you're out. So the idea is a sport component of the Burmese martial arts is very much the idea of preparing you for the idea of warfare, where if you lose, you're done. In the Kachin variation of Banshe, there's 3 different styles of weapons. You have your projectile weapons, such as a gun, a bow and arrow, anything that flies through the air and hits somebody. You have your impact weapons, such as a stick, a pole, anything that you would strike somebody with. And you have your bladed weapon, like a da, or the Kachin term is an atu. They tend to be very heavy weapons used to hack people up. The Kashin seem to be scavengers. They will pick up knives and weapons from varying people. They also use the kukri. The kukri is kind of like the Kashin variation of a pocket knife. Now, they use that a lot in their grappling to, let's say, deanimate limbs. Unlike Chinese Kung Fu, the animal systems in the Burmese martial arts aren't actually patterned after animals themselves. The Kashin people were an animistic society. Okay, they worshiped things in nature. So if somebody happened to tackle you and grapple with you, he was fighting like a python. If he happened to be a big, strong guy who liked to throw punches, he might be fighting like a bull. So the idea is the animal systems were actually part of the overall martial art, and it was used to describe both a person's emotional aspect and their physical aspect. I actually feel, my pet theory, and I have no proof of this, is that the martial art has a much heavier Indian influence in it. I feel that the way we use our bodies, we are constantly contracting our body into itself, has a very heavy yogic component. And to me, I see a much more similarity between yoga movements and, let's say, Chinese or Japanese martial arts movements. Right now, the Burmese government seems to be making an effort to repackage a martial art along the template of, let's say, Chinese wushu, that they would like to sell out to the general public as part of what is Burma. They seem to be killing everything that is ethnic within Burma. Burma's a state with close to 160 different ethnic tribes. And the idea is the government or the Burman people are trying to stomp out everything that's different. I think there's a basic difficulty with the American people and the rules the Burmese fight by. The idea of no rules does not appeal to the American politician or the average American citizen. So I think the Burmese martial arts, while they may have the opportunity to grow through efforts of, let's say, people like myself trying to spread them, I see them being hindered by the fact that there aren't a great deal of us out there doing this. And I see the difficulty being the nature of the way we train. I would like to see the Kashin systems grow and flourish in the United States simply because I really feel it offers so much to so many people. It teaches you a form of self-defense, teaches you a way to train, it teaches you a lot about yourself. And when you pass and fail tests, you learn more about yourself than you could in almost any other endeavor. You're watching Inside Martial Arts.
Thank you for watching Inside Martial Arts. Till next time, stay strong.